Okay, so we're continuing our look at the Constitution, and today what we're going to really look at is like the title says, is the roots of the Constitution. And what we're talking about here is, if you'll remember yesterday, we talked about the Constitutional Convention, and that James Madison came with a plan, and that was known as the Virginia Plan. But he wasn't the only one that had lots of ideas about the Constitution and what it should look like. All of these people had that were part of this convention had read about different types of government, had helped, many of them had helped to write their own state constitutions, which are in many ways going to be very similar to the U.S. Constitution in certain ways. And so, where did they get these ideas about self-government, about the Constitution, about people's rights, and the way what good government looks like? Well, certainly we'll see that their English ancestry, the our history as a part of England, helped certainly help to bring about these ideas. So we go all the way back to Magna Carta, which limits the power of the king. Where the king, you can see there even in the image, the king's power is complete and total. And with Magna Carta, there is somewhat of a decrease in the power of the king. So there is either a great council and eventually a parliament that now is having some of the power. And so the king no longer has absolute power, and parliament has some power, and it's recognizing even some citizens' rights. And so that's the key with the Magna Carta, is it's limiting the power of the king. And so that's definitely the main thing, hopefully, you've put down for Magna Carta, limits the power of the king. Then we get to the English Bill of Rights, and there's some similarities here, but it's much more well defined. The English Bill of Rights, it recognizes and protects citizens' rights from government infringement. Infringement, somebody infringes upon your space, that means they're taking up their more than their fair share of space on the table, perhaps, that you're sitting at right now. That's an example of infringement. If somebody's infringing upon your rights, well, then you have a right, and they are somehow taking away or making it difficult for you to experience your rights completely. And so the English Bill of Rights protected people's citizens' rights from government infringement, from the government saying you don't have these rights. And some, many of these rights that are in the English Bill of Rights are what we see in our U.S. Bill of Rights in the United States Constitution today. And so this is really important because we're seeing, these ideas becoming more and more a part of colonial life, and therefore they're the very things that the colonists were upset about during the Revolution. And now that they're creating a more powerful government, they want to make sure they're still protecting rights and things of that nature. And so these things are on their mind as they create this new government. Even their colonial experience, though, the Mayflower Compact was created by the people, and it was saying, "Hey, we agree to work together for the good of our colony." So that's kind of even, in a sense, an example of the people ruling, of self-government, some early self-government, and the idea of the social contract, and that we, the people, are in it together. Just like the Constitution starts off, "We the people." Now, the Mayflower Compact doesn't start off "We the people," but that idea is that we are here together in this. So those are some of the, um, I guess, the political ways and the roots to the Constitution, going back to England and then the colonial period, some of the big ones. And then if we look to the philosophers of the Constitution, this should not be, the first two names should not be real new to you, at least John Locke's name. So we've talked about John Locke with the Declaration of Independence and these ideas of life, liberty, and property. And then Thomas Jefferson borrows that phrase, but changes it a little bit with life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness in the Declaration of Independence. Well, John Locke, um, so as we've said before, he says, government is purpose is to protect freedoms and the citizens' rights. And if the government does not protect your rights, it's the citizens' responsibility to overthrow that government, which is the idea behind the Declaration of Independence. And so when they're creating this Constitution, they want to make sure that they're protecting life, liberty, and property and things of that nature. So those ideas of citizens' rights is really important. Unalienable rights with John Locke, these rights that people have. Citizens have rights. They're born with them. People have rights. Montesquieu, on the other hand, he's getting more specific into how do we protect those rights? What are the structures we put in our Constitution to protect those rights? And he believed that government power should be separated to keep no one branch or group from gaining too much power. And so Montesquieu's idea of separating power or dividing power is where we get this idea of three branches. So we divide power into three branches. So you've got the legislative branch, and they make the laws. You've got the executive branch, and they enforce the laws. And you've got the judicial branch, and they interpret the law and administer justice. And so that is the three branches, and that's Montesquieu. And so these two philosophers are really important. And then William Blackstone is the famous jurist in England, and he believed that the king should not take away a person's property and believed strongly in individual rights. And so he wants to protect individual rights and laws. The kings are not above the law and that kind of thing. So that's William Blackstone. And so these ideas are really central and important. Another idea that we'll see, and you'll see actually in your assignment that Mr. Perkins is going to give you in just a minute, you're going to read a writing by James Madison. And they're going to talk, he's in that, it's really clearly going to be kind of referring back to Montesquieu, so hopefully you catch that. But there's another idea that we haven't really mentioned here, and that's the idea of federalism. And we have talked about it, that there were states had power. We talked about it the other day, that the states had power and the national government had power. And under the Articles of Confederation, the states had most of the power, and the federal or national government had very little, and it was weak. And that was the way they wanted it. Well, now with this new Constitution, the states are going to lose some power, and the national government is going to gain some power. But what we're still seeing, and what that idea is called federalism, is that the power is still divided. So first you put some power with the states and some power with the national government. And then whatever power you have with the national government, you then separate into three branches. So that's some of the ideas there that you should see today in your notes, and then you can use these notes and remember what I've said as you work on the assignment that the substitute gives you right after this video. So make sure you're doing what you're supposed to do. You're doing your own work. You're working hard. You're getting that done. I am going to collect today's assignment. The sub is going to collect it. So today's assignment will be for a grade. So you need to make sure you're doing it and paying close attention and doing your best. So the bell work from today is going to be for a grade, and the assignment from today is going to be for a grade. So I'll be collecting that, or the sub will be collecting that, and I'll be grading it this evening.